This is the book of First Thessalonians, chapter 5, verses 2 and 3, verse 2, and it reads, For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rahakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who were well in teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be likened to the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Ayashar Barzal from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone, coming back at you with another lesson that is edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. All right, got this article here. This peace deal, 2-week peace deal between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. All right, and I use that opening scripture. Now, this is actually talking about the actual day of the Lord, but what I wanted to show here is that, Esau is playing his hand. You cannot trust this devil. All right. They're talking about a peace over a 2-week period, and as soon as the deal is agreed to, what happens? Israel goes and bombs southern Lebanon, which was part of that deal, not to do. Okay, we know exactly what Israel is trying to do. Okay, the cat is out of the bag. You are not the chosen people of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right. They, bombed southern Lebanon right after this treaty was signed. And where's southern Lebanon? Let me get my map here. First, my pointer. Get that out. And then the map. All right. Slide up here. Southern Lebanon, right at the northern point of Israel. Okay. They want that area. Okay. Because you know that the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is from the Nile River right over here, okay, all the way over to the Euphrates, which is in this area. It separates Iran and Iraq, okay, these two rivers here that dump into the Persian Gulf, okay. Here's Tehran, the capital of Iran that they're saying they want to hit, all right. But southern Lebanon, that's all part of that. Genesis 15 and 18 is the parameters which, the Lord said he would give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, okay. And southern Lebanon is right here, just below Syria, okay. So they went and hit, and we talk about it all the time, that that Jeremiah 49 and 20, the least of the flock shall draw them out. That's talking about Amalek. All right, let me grab that. This is Slakia. I need to upgrade that. Jeremiah 40 and 20 says, Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai that he have taken against Edom, and his purposes that he have purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Okay. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. All right. So yeah, that's both the United States and Israel. The inhabitants of Teman. When you go back to this map again, Teman is right over in this area. Edom was located just west of southern Israel, around in the Jordan area. You also had the capital Basra, Teman, and Dedan in this area. Okay. Right now, that's modern day Saudi Arabia. But here's where Amalek is. Right in here, and they definitely want to take over all of this. Okay, all of these nations here have military bases. Okay, for the United States, and Iran, pretty much hit all of them. All right, pretty much hit all of them. But yeah, they're going to make this war happen. Okay, but they are not going to get this land. They are not going to get the whole land that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Once again, Genesis 15:18, from the great river of Egypt, which is the Nile. Okay, right over in this area, the Nile coming all the way down here, all the way over to the Euphrates, which is the Euphrates is just west of the Tigris. Okay, there's Iran. All right. So yeah. So let me get into this article. It says Pete Hegseth says we'll be hanging around after Iran ceasefire announcement, and that's hey, you can't trust these devils. It says Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Wednesday said we'll be hanging around after the announcement of a 2-week ceasefire with Iran. Didn't last that long because part of that ceasefire agreement was Israel not hitting Lebanon, and they hit it anyway. All right, so this is going to go south real fast. Okay, it says while saying that Iran knows this agreement means that they will never ever possess a nuclear weapon. You can't tell them what to do. See, that's the nature of Esau Edom. You know, this fucking devil hates for you to have the ability to defend yourself. Okay, because he knows he doesn't stand a chance when it's a level playing field. But hey, I must say, this serpent has run into a damn mongoose of Iran. We know they could squash them. If they really wanted to with that nuke, but that's going to involve everybody else. And the United States has no allies right now. All right, and they have nuclear weapons. Best believe they do. All right. It says Hegseth announced at the start of Wednesday's briefing that the Pentagon's job is done in Iran, but he clarified that we're not going anywhere, and our troops are prepared to defend, prepared to go on offense, prepared to restart at a moment's notice to ensure that Iran complies with the ceasefire. Well, you know, the chief nation, the first of the nations, Amalek, was part of that agreement, and they didn't agree to it. They didn't keep it. They broke it. And then what happens? Iran fires again. All right. It says Wednesday's briefing came after President Trump announced late Tuesday that he had agreed to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks, adding that the U.S. has already met and exceeded all military objectives. And you have to take that with a grain of salt because there's stuff kind of coming out of Iran via other sources that prove otherwise. Okay? All right? And everybody knows that these people are lying. You can the U.S. is bought and paid for. Okay? The government has been 100% compromised. As you look at the news, on television, some of these television shows, never would a foreign flag be above the United States flag. But that's what we see now. This is the United States of Israel. All right? Again, another state. And then, they're making provisions if this doesn't work out. They've bought up property in, I think, Venezuela or Argentina. I can't remember which one it is. But yeah, it doesn't matter, because the Lord is going to have his way with Edom. We know that for a fact, according to prophecy. And he's starting to do it. All right. It says, Mr. Trump said early Wednesday that under the agreement there will be no enrichment of uranium, and the United States, working with Iran, dig up and remove all the deeply buried B-2 bombers, nuclear dust. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. You at the table negotiating with Iran twice, and you bombed them twice. Yeah, that's not going to work. Let's see. That's Psalms 55. Start at verse 20. He has put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. All right. He hath broken his covenant. Like, there it is. This is, talking about, hey, how this dude does, especially with Jake. He broke 400 treaties with the Northern Kingdom. Okay. The so-called Native Americans that were here. All right. Verse 21 says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Isn't that just what Hegseth said? Even in this peace, we're going to be hanging around. That's exactly what it's talking about. All right. You cannot trust this devil. But it's not going to stop, because we know, according to prophecy, this must happen. All right. This must come to pass. All right. And again, Amalek, the first of the nations, chief nation of Edom, is that least of the flock. They are the youngest nation on this planet, going back to 1948. All right. Back to the article. Hegseth said at the briefing that it takes time sometimes for a ceasefire to take hold. He added that we're watching it, we're prepared if necessary, but we hope and believe that it will hold. Yeah, right. No, you don't hope that. You don't hope that. Your nature is to kill, steal, and destroy. That's John 8:44. Okay? Kill, steal, and destroy. Edom is a very, very proud nation. You are not going to let Iran do what they did and get away with it. It says, Hegseth said as he opened the briefing that Iran has been a threat to the United States and the free world for 47 years. How so? You went over there and attacked them. Dropped bombs, killed, I think 150, 180 little girls in a school. That's just your nature. You hit the weak and the feeble. That's what Esau Edom does. That's why he wants to take away your weapons. On a level playing field, this bastard is a punk, a straight punk. When you matched up equally with him, yeah. That's just the way he is. All right. He says, no longer, not our watch, he added. Hegseth echoed the president's message, touting a big day for world peace. Yeah, right. And he praised the U.S. military operation as a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. Well, if it was an overwhelming victory on the battlefield, why did you agree to all their terms? Doesn't sound right. All right. It says, by any measure, epic fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come, he said. Yeah, right after they said that, we had, 2 F-35 shot down? And they posted pictures of it. All right. Hegseth said in less than 40 days, the U.S. dismantled one of the world's largest militaries. Okay. Yeah, they're still bombing as I make this video. says, the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism proved utterly incapable of defending itself, its people, or its territory, he said. We untied just a fraction of our strength, and Iran suffered a devastating military defeat. Yeah, propaganda. Especially the part about the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. That's this place. Iran doesn't have military bases all over the world. It's the United States. You know, you're the real terrorists. This is and that's just the truth. Your history proves that. Sirach 23, or Ecclesiasticus chapter 23, verse 15, I think. Yeah, and it reads, the man that is accustomed to opprobrious words will never be reformed all the days of his life. Okay. That word opprobrious means to bring shame and disgrace. Esau, Edom, so-called white, you do a lot of projection. Okay. When you're the actual culprit. The shit you do, you blame others. Okay. And say that they did it. That's you. The world sees that right now. That's why you have no more allies. That's why the state of Israel is in a predicament that it's in. You know, you're always the victim villain, you know, or the villain that cries victim. All right. Back to the article. It says, Hegseth said, now we have a chance at real peace and a real deal amid the ceasefire. Nope. Nope. And, you know, Iran knows better than that. And just let me, for the record, you know, I'm not biased. You know, it's all about the salvation of Israel. We know that these things need to come, but you just got to point out, you know, the hypocrisy of this devil and the propaganda that he spreads. You know, it says Hegseth says we now have a chance at real peace and a real deal amid the ceasefire. He said the Pentagon, for now, has done its part and stands ready to ensure Iran upholds every reasonable term. How can you do that when the United States and Israel didn't? Like within, you know, hours of it being signed, they went and bombed southern Lebanon. Okay. It says Kane said over the course of 38 days of major combat operation, the Joint Force achieved the military objectives as defined by the President. The Joint Chiefs Chairman said, we welcome the ongoing ceasefire, adding that we hope that Iran chooses a lasting peace. Yeah, but the United States isn't. Your job, you know, you take peace from the earth, period. But as the scriptures say, let me see, I think that's Isaiah 48. I believe it is 22. God. Isaiah 48 and 22. There is no peace, saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, unto the wicked. Yeah. So you know, we know you don't believe in peace, but there will be no peace for you in these coming days. All right? That's why you're scared, you know, doing all this surveillance. You know you done fucked the world over, and now you're scared. Okay? But Yahushai, you're going to really have something to be scared of, you know. You're going to see that power coming from the skies, you know, big, muscle-bound brother, brown skin, you know, and a fathership that you can't see the end to, you know, wiping this place out in 1 hour. All right? It says, I'll read that paragraph again. Kane said over the course of 38 days of major combat operation, the joint force achieved the military objectives as defined by the president. They ain't do shit. Says the Joint Chiefs Chairman said, we welcome the ongoing ceasefire, adding that we hope that Iran chooses lasting peace. All right. Says the ceasefire announcement came after Mr. Trump said early Tuesday morning that a whole civilization will die if Iran didn't agree to a peace deal. Now, that's a threat. You think they're going to take their feet or their foot off the gas? That's a straight threat. There's no way. And again, you've already showed them that you're not going to do that by bombing them while you're in the middle of negotiations. I mean, just because you're stupid, don't believe everybody else is. And we know that this place is incompetent. That this government is incompetent. All right, the Lord's got you in a trick bag. All right. It goes on to say, asked whether the U.S. was prepared to follow through on the threat, Hegseth said, we had a target set, locked and loaded of infrastructure, bridges, power plants, and Iran knew exactly what the scope of what we were capable of. So that they already know what you're gonna do. All right. But what they did, your punch has to come from a distance. You don't have those bases in the vicinity of them anymore. All right. And then your allies are not going to help. They made that clear. All right. But you pull that nuclear stuff, and that's where everybody else comes in. I just saw an article today. Taiwan has met with China for some sort of reconciliation. And man, that's a whole nother story. They manufacture those chips, and in exchange for America's protection, they had the first right of refusal on those chips. Yeah, this shit is shaping up great. All right. Goes on. He says he ultimately said, "We can take it all from you. Your ability to export energy will be taken away." Hegseth said of the president, that type of threat is what brought them to the place where they effectively said, okay, we want to cut this deal. Yeah. All right. And, all throughout, they have been saying different. Everything that America says, as they say, they deny it. All right. It says, amid the ceasefire announcement, oil prices plunged Wednesday, staying well above pre-war levels, but dropping below the $100 per a barrel mark, and stocks soared in the early trading Wednesday. Yeah, this is all a game. All right. It says, but at least 3 explosions were heard around Iran's Lavon Island oil refinery. The country's state media reported Wednesday, hours after Mr. Trump said that the U.S. and Iran had agreed to a conditional 2-week ceasefire. See, there we go. All right. Can't trust him. It says it was not immediately clear whether U.S. or Israeli forces had launched new attacks on the island. Well, it doesn't make a difference. Israel was part of that ceasefire. All right. It says, which sits less than 10 miles off of Iran's coast in the Persian Gulf, west of the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz. Israel has also agreed to the ceasefire proposal. See, a White House official told CBS News. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office announced late Tuesday night that while Israel supports the United States' 2-week ceasefire with Iran, the accord doesn't cover the fighting between Israel's military and Hezbollah and Lebanon-based Iranian proxy. All right, that is, hey, again, the least of the flock is going to draw them out. All right. Says Iranian Foreign Minister Syed Abbas Araghchi confirmed that Iran had agreed to halt defensive operations, likely referring to its drone and missile strikes on U.S. allies in the region if the U.S. stops attacking Iran. Araghchi also said Iran's armed forces will coordinate to allow for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. A maritime monitoring service said Wednesday that a vessel movement was resuming in the Strait of Hormuz with two ships moving through the vital waterway. It says early signs of vessel activity are emerging in the Strait of Hormuz following a ceasefire, marine traffic said on X. Okay. It says initial movements are now being recorded, it said. The Greek-owned bulk carrier NJ Earth crossed the strait at 8:44 UTC, while the Liberia-flagged Daytona Beach transited earlier at 06:59 UTC, shortly after departing Bandar Abbas at 5:28 UTC. All right, so that's the end of the article. But here again, you know, these devils cannot be trusted, none whatsoever. All right, it's just the beginning. You know, we knew that ceasefire was not going to last. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Raha Akakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like to the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom, Kwam Yasharallah, Abba, Abba. Shalom.